and other long-lived streets in Linden Hills and elsewhere. The developers speak of return on investments and tax value, and they do this with impressive numbers and respected consultants to bolster their case for demolition. But who speaks for the house and the history that is embedded in that second-story lookout where Brenda wrote, "Always with one eye on Lake Harriet"? Who speaks for the heritage of our city and the renowned woman writer who made her home, to quote again author Patricia Hampel, a campfire around which younger, aspiring writers warmed their futures? And who speaks for the people who have made their homes here and planted their maple trees and lived long among their neighbors? In her letter, Brenda speaks for her street and her neighbors. She says, "We love our street and everybody who lives on it, and we will not have it uglified." Here are some words from a more recent letter from yesterday. These are the words of Nina Archibald, Director Emerita of the Minnesota Historical Society and the woman responsible for saving the burnt-out shell of the Washburn A Mill and transforming it into the into the Mill City Museum that we all enjoy today. Now that was a distressed building. Regrettably, very few sites associated with women have been preserved, and even fewer that remind us of our literary leadership and our citizens' creative accomplishments. I understand that the city is under no statutory obligation to right this wrong, but wouldn't it be prudent and an admirable thing to do?
Thank you. I just want to make sure we have time for everyone.
I have just 3 sentences left.
Okay.
Thank you. But wouldn't it be a prudent and admirable thing if you upheld the recommendation of the HPC and allowed a study of the historical value to go forward? Brenda Euland's house is a touchstone and a landmark, and quite possibly a way for the city to foster its cultural life and reputation. As Nina Archibald concludes her letter, one step at a time, let's do the designation study and see what it yields. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else? Welcome.
Good morning. Ann Laughlin, 4804 Dowling Street, Minneapolis. I'm reading 2 brief statements. The first one is from Nora Hall, author, co-chair of Walker Arts Center Producers Council, and Twin Cities Folk History Initiative community curator. Brenda's house in the unique Linden Hills neighborhood is a prime stop on the tours I give to any foreign guest who comes to town. It's so essentially Minneapolis. It stands as a jewel of our literary and social history, encapsulated in a place precious because it is still visible. Last summer, I went to Iceland and was thrilled to discover the home of the writer Halldór Laxness, 20 minutes outside of the old town center of Reykjavik. It's become a mecca for travelers and stands as a beacon for the lively intelligence and independent spirit of the whole country. And then from Phil Freshman, who's an editor and writer and Minneapolis resident. Like many, many others, I've read and loved Brenda Euland's book, If You Want to Write. Brenda was part of that exceptional Greenwich Village arts and intellectual scene that flourished between about 1910 and the early 1920s. I helped edit a book for the Minnesota Historical Society Press about her suffragist mother, Clara. Clara Euland was a major activist figure in Minnesota, instrumental in getting women the vote here and in helping give the 20th Amendment a big push toward adoption. Demolishing Brenda's Linden Hills house would remove Minneapolis's last physical link to a family who made vital contributions to Minnesota history and culture. I hope the house remains standing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Who else would like to speak? How many more people would like to speak? Okay. You gotta come. Yep, come on up.
Thank you. Ronnie Talon, live in South Minneapolis. We have a chance in the city to get it right. It's time to honor our history instead of destroying it with yet another forgettable building. Brenda Euland is a founding mother of Minneapolis feminism and a great writer. I had the honor of meeting her, and she was an inspiration. I used her book, If You Want to Write, with my own English students, and it inspired them. She said, "Everyone is talented, original, and has something important to say." We need to honor that philosophy and her contribution by saving her house. We can always get another soulless place. But once Brenda Euland's house is gone, it is gone forever. That is how you will be remembered. Instead, be remembered for having the courage to stand up to the dollar signs. Brenda's house means something. It is about our collective history. What will replace it will mean nothing except to the people making money. They can always do that. Do it someplace else. Save Brenda's home and a piece of who we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Come on up, please. We have about 10 minutes before we lose council members, so I just got to keep this moving along so we have time for motion and discussion.
That's not good. Madam Chair and council members, Peter Sussman, 6904 Mark Terrace Drive. As with Joellen Hago, who spoke earlier, I've been involved with the Linden Hills History Study Group for 20 years, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the group. And these comments are in supplement to the comments submitted to Aaron Hanauer that you have. 2620 West 44th Street is the only extant building associated with Brenda Euland. As you've heard, the Euland family house overlooking Lake Calhoun from 1890 was demolished in the mid-1950s. Brenda's house would become the second individual landmark in Minneapolis listed for its association with a significant woman, joining the Lena Olive Smith home at 3905 Fifth Avenue South. 55 pages of Brenda's autobiography include her invaluable descriptions of the early landscape and community of Linden Hills, beginning from her childhood in the 1890s. From the time of her return to Minneapolis in 1930, Brenda remained an influential presence locally. There would be an immeasurable value in maintaining a tangible link within the community and recognition of Brenda Euland. I want to note the opportunity to meet with and exchange views with the property owners and with Councilmember Palmisano over the past weeks, which has been appreciated. I look forward to their ongoing substantive engagement as these discussions move forward.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Come on up. And I'm going to just go ahead and close the public hearing, within the next 5 minutes here. So,
my name is Sarah Lynn Romanishin, and I proudly live in the indefatigable and historic Wedge neighborhood in our Minneapolis, a city full of energy, ever-growing, and teeming with life. But what makes this city so very special? The people, of course, but what else? What feeds our people? The theaters, bars, and parks, they are simply facets of our infinitely evolving city. Interwoven with the activity, the people, and the land is our history, an integral baseline for the anthropomorphic mechanism we inhabit. I am not referring to history on a museum wall or a plaque. I mean the living, breathing history that surrounds us, teaches us, and supports us. It is the infrastructure that grows and stays with us from childhood to old age. The traditions of the city are our family. The city is our family. It is home. Dinkytown, St. Anthony Falls, West Broadway, the Wedge, Lake Street, Linden Hills. In neighborhood after neighborhood, we are destroying ourselves piece by piece. Strike that. We is the wrong word, because we, standing here before you today, are not the ones destroying the living history of Minneapolis. We are not the ones giving our city away for someone else's profit and the unquantifiably fickle concept of density. We want organic growth in this city, integrating the old and the new, learning from the old to create the new, and enjoying the old, allowing us to fully appreciate the new. Minneapolis power brokers have a history of ignoring our history, and it's time to learn from that history. This is a city for the generations, not a city for only one generation. I request that you deny the appeal to demolish the home of Brenda Euland. I also ask that you put this property forward for landmark status to protect a vital source of living history for the generations to come. The greatest cities are not a hotel, they are a home. Do the good thing and save our home. Thank you.
would anyone else like to speak? I'll ask this be the last speaker from the group, just so we have time to finish the work of the committee.
Hi, my name is Eric Utney, and I'm Brenda Euland's step-grandson. I've been working on a book on contract to Random House for 4 years about my life, but a big part of my life was Brenda's mentorship. she married my grandfather when I was 12, and even though they split up, we stayed connected until the day before she died. I lived in Linden Hills for 33 years in order to be near her. I started a magazine there that we had our offices in 3 different locations in downtown Linden Hills. I think council members have heard today that the first of 3 criteria that Brenda Ueland was significant, historically significant, and we're getting so many testimonials daily from people who are attesting to that fact. I also think the slides you may have seen that were shown of the interior of the house by a rental agent just in July of 2015 shows that the house is in good shape, and a licensed architect attests to that, or licensed contractor, and that there are viable alternatives. And we've only had 10 days since the appeal letter was made available, and so we've been scrambling. We're getting literally many scores of letters attesting to Brenda's significance, but we need time to really come up with a viable plan. There have been a bunch of them put forward already, and there are, and the support, I feel confident that there is support for another incarnation of that house. It's a viable physical structure. It's not a distressed property. People from Minnesota Historical Society, Norway House, the Loft, Grey Wolf Press, the Schubert Club, the Walker Art Center, and the University of Minnesota have all declared their interest in making this a place that not just honors Brenda, but is a vital cultural resource for the city and the state. And I'd just like to point out that in PVN's testimony, they kept emphasizing that Brenda's major contributions were done before she lived in that house. But she lived there for the last 30 years of her life. And just like Emerson and Thoreau, she wrote essays. Yes, her books became popular, but her essays are her lasting legacy. And she wrote them in that house, as well as a couple of books. So we're going to, and just like Emily Dickinson and Edgar Allan Poe, Brenda's popularity and her significance is only going to become even more appreciated after her death. She was a treasure here, and let's give ourselves the time to do the study. That's all I'm asking for today. I can't lay out for you a viable plan. 10 days is not enough time, but I feel confident that we can do that. So please do the study, and we'll see you back here.
Thank you.
Hope.
Thank you so much. Okay, one last speaker, and then we'll close the public hearing.
Hi, my name is Beth Dalby, and I owned the home from 2002 until 2015, and I lived there until 2012. And I bought the home from Brenda's and her daughter Gabby's estate, and it was that transaction was handled by Bruce Carlson, who was the president of the Schubert Club and a very dear friend of Brenda's. And I would never stand up and try to debate whether she was a towering and very important figure here. I worship her legacy, and that's why I bought the house. And I'm a little thrown by some of the comments made today, but I kind of wanted to touch on 3 things that I think are important not to get lost in the discussion. And one of them is that when I heard it was being sold as a teardown by Bruce, he was marketing it as a teardown because of its zoning and because of the value being in the land. And at that time, the state of the house was very wrecked. I heard it was being sold as a teardown, and I just had this big romantic fantasy of swooping in and buying it and saving it and living in it and growing old and dying there like Brenda had done. And so I swooped in all right, and I worked very, very hard on restoring it to the best of my ability. And when I first contacted Bruce Carlson and introduced myself and said how much I love Brenda and I wanted to buy it and save it, he immediately cautioned me and said, you know, it has so many problems. And he listed the many problems that it had, many of that I had seen when I'd gone to the estate sale and many that I wasn't aware of. And after I moved in, Bruce visited me, and he would bring me Brenda paraphernalia and mementos, and he would tell me many stories about Brenda. And to be honest, that's just the piece that I want to put forward is it was that oral history for me that really allowed her legacy to come alive for me and that I try to share with everyone in celebrating Brenda's life. In order to make it livable, I made so many changes there. All of the ceilings swayed, the roof leaked. I had to keep garbage cans in the living room until I could put the new roof on. And I ended up tearing out every surface there except the original maple floors. I moved walls, I removed some walls, but I was doing my best to make it livable. I moved the entire front entrance to a different part of the front. I ended up having to tear off the front porch because it was falling apart. And when it was put back in, it was brought up to code and it was all different materials. It was wood instead of stucco, and it was different pillars altogether that I had made. So I guess part of what I want to say is I made so many changes because that seemed like the right thing to do at the time. And it was certainly not to in any way denigrate Brenda's memory, but it was because I'd bought it in good faith as an R4 home. And as Bruce said, every time he visited with me, when he would tell me these wonderful, hilarious, outrageous sometimes stories about Brenda, he would kind of look around at my slow but earnest progress with the house. And he'd always remind me, that if it ever gets to be too much for you, you can sell it for the value of the land. And I guess I just want to close by saying that it's very important to me to just be honest and say, if it had not been for a developer buying that property from me, if I had faced a burden of it being, if the rules changing while I owned it and it going from being an R4 to being historically designated, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you it would have financially destroyed me. And I'm just 2 transactions away from that right now. And I just think that bears thinking about. And yet I want so much to be part of any and all efforts to promote and protect her legacy. I'm just not sure that it has to do with that property. But I do think that not enough people know about her, and she's a magnificent figure who should be memorialized forever.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. I'll see if my colleagues have any questions for staff or for any of the folks who spoke. Seeing none, is there a motion on this item? Councilmember Reich?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think we've had some very profound testimony today. And I think what we have before us is a very strong case that it really is about the person and the story, and not so much about the building. I think $70,000, a commitment to do that in art and other sort of treatments to historically remember someone in a way that's actually proactive and in the community in a meaningful, educational, and participatory way, maybe a better legacy. But it's still a close call. I think structures do matter. They can be touchstones. But so much of it, that building seems to be gone. But this is a person that should not be gone. And so again, I think as long as the understanding and approval of the request that we have before us, at this agreement, $70,000 is held, and I want that to be in the record. And I want, of course, testimony that lends more to the person than the structure to be part of the analysis that our legal team will put forward that would back this motion, if it prevails.
Thank you. Councilmember Reich, is there a discussion on that motion? Okay, and the clerk and the staff, city attorney.
Yes, Chair Bender, Councilmember Reich, just to clarify the motion, from what I heard or what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it would be to make the finding that that it is a historic resource, but there are no reasonable alternatives to demolition based on the presentation today and the information in the record. The council only gets to the mitigation aspects, which have been voluntarily proposed by the applicant, if you approve the demo. So the approval of the demo is what you attach, or what we would attach the mitigation conditions to in the findings that you would direct us to do. So the core of the motion, though, would be that you're making a finding that there are no reasonable alternatives to demolition.
Okay. Does that sound correct? Thank you for the clarification. Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Member Reich's motion is to allow for the demolition of a historic resource. As you might imagine, I'm not going to be voting in favor of that. I think the reason there's no reasonable alternative is because the developer doesn't want to provide a reasonable alternative, and that is they're allowed to do that. They own the property. But that's the reason there's no alternative. I think there could be an alternative. That's what the Heritage Preservation Commission has stated, that the building merits further study, and I believe it does merit further study, but it does get down to the bottom line of, well, will the developer sell the building to someone else who would do that? And they're in their own right to say they won't, and they've said it publicly. And I think we have to live with their decision. We don't have the right to take the property from them. And I don't think it makes sense to, quite frankly, waste everybody's time to do a study when they won't sell and then create a financial hardship for a whole bunch of other people. So it's with great regret that I will not vote to allow the demolition of a historic resource, but I understand where the developer is coming from.
All right, is there further discussion on that motion? I'll just note I really appreciate everyone coming, and I know the council member's office and staff have been really working to try to hear the ideas that are coming as alternatives to preserving the historic significance here. And I just know, we've had a high number, actually, I think, of these culturally significant properties, both coming forward as individual properties as well as districts. And they just create another wrinkle of consideration. We have a huge district coming forward soon, right? A proposed district in the Homewood area. We have cultural districts that we've approved in the Tilsonville area where property owners were able to opt out because we weren't designating the architectural history, but rather the cultural history. So I just wanted to note that it's not just in this one property where we're kind of discussing the back and forth between that physical property and the cultural significance. It's a citywide policy issue that we've been talking about a lot lately. So with that, all those in favor of Councilmember Reich's motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. So that motion carries. Let me just...
Madam Chair, I'll be fair. This is my fault. Okay. I have a noon meeting that has been moved back from 11 to noon. So I am creating a quorum problem.
Councilmember Johnson has to leave as well.
I'm just admitting that I'm the problem and not you as the chair. I think it was fair to have a lot of testimony, and I'm happy we did. Sometimes these meetings are 3 minutes and sometimes they're 3 hours, and there's no way of judging. So I apologize, Madam Chair, for having another item on the agenda.
So I think the best thing to do here is to postpone a cycle, but I wanted to hear from staff because I know that the intention here was to have this item come before the council before the Community Connections Conference on April 1st, but we've lost quorum in the committee, so.
Madam Chair, unless there's any possibility of a quick vote, but this content probably requires some presentation and deliberation.
So my colleagues are leaving now, so we've lost quorum. So I got to move to postpone the item. Guys? Okay. We need to find two more council members so that we can move to postpone the item. So Councilmember Reich, I just want to make sure you're not leaving. Can you go back to the please? And then Beth, why don't you go ahead with what you were going to say? No. Okay. All right.
Can I just ask a question on staff though?
We're going to postpone the item.
Okay.
We need one more.
Okay.
Just want to note for the public that we have to vote on the postponement of the last item, and we've lost quorum, so we're trying to get back quorum so that we can take a simple vote to postpone an item. Madam Clerk, we do not have quorum to allow us to move to postpone the item. I would take your advice about what to do. Just adjourn and we'll handle it at council.
I think what we have to do is simply what we would do if we met at the beginning of the meeting and you didn't have quorum. So you would simply have to establish the fact that you can't take action on anything else. And without talking to other people, it's possible you could add this item on Friday's council meeting to your actions if you wanted during that time. Otherwise, it has to go to another.
Okay. It sounds like the best option is for postponement as well, just because there's questions and comments on the motion. So we'll just go ahead and have the postponement action at council then. So I'll just note that we've lost quorum. We had a final item that we cannot hear, and we are adjourned.